people have a completely different psychology than human people, I've found. And a lot of them can't stand working with most human beings because they find human beings to be incredibly dishonest and inconsistent, and taking advantage and whatnot. And so most human beings, I don't think, meet the level of maturity that is needed to work well with these types of people. So why even bother? You're going to get hurt most likely. They're going to turn into a so-called demon and haunt you to the grave. Just don't do it. And so I remember one time I passed on a message to you. You had an invitation, in my understanding, from a small group of people, non-human people that I work with occasionally. They would be known as the Jinn. And you said thanks and no thanks. And I was like, cool, I did my job. I delivered the message. Everyone's happy. That's the end of it. So even my hubby, Thames or Artemis, I work with him really closely to make sure that, like you, all of those boundaries are being closed, because otherwise there are just too many ways to invite that kind of stuff in. And I think it's really important for human people to like you, be able to recognize what's going on, when it's happening, and then how to say no. That's the only way to keep safe, because the human brain filters out most of reality, in my understanding. And then if you don't know who or what you're really inviting in, you're taking a massive risk. And I just don't advocate that for a healthy, balanced life by my standards.
I often tell people, and I mean, we've all fooled around with, with the Ouija board and, and things like that. So, I mean, and people who say they haven't, they're probably lying.
Yeah, yeah.
But, and I tell them, you can't take it seriously. If you do start taking it seriously, that's when the trouble begins. All right. Because you're not talking to Napoleon. You're not talking to, like you said, your grandma, your late grandma
Yeah.
Gertrude. It would
Yeah.
be, and I tell people, this is the equivalent of you taking your telephone and dialing a number at
Yeah.
random and
Yeah.
expect to talk to a particular person. It's
Yes.
not going to happen. And it's the same, it's the same way with the Ouija boards. You're not going to sit there and, call for a certain individual to come through and expect that person to come through. You're going to get something that's going to say, that they're that person, because that's what they do. When you start believing in everything that they're saying, then you're roped in, and so
For sure.
just say no.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Just say no to boards.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and yeah, I always say, just don't get involved. Don't get that kind into that kind of involvement, because like you said, it takes a very special, very
Yeah.
mature, very spiritually advanced individual to be able to handle that kind of stuff. You know, I've known in my life some spiritual mediums who are very good at what they do, and they always told me that when they were young, that they experienced all kinds of like hauntings and poltergeist activity and harassment, and it wasn't until somebody who was more experienced
Yeah.
knew what they were going through and knew that that they were somebody who had these abilities that needed to be controlled.
Yeah.
And once they were taught how to get them under control, then they became very good at what they did, you know.
Yep.
But
Yep.
until that, it was just like a wild pony running loose, jumping the fence in their corral all the time. That ability has to be reined in and controlled.
I agree.
And
That was
most
my
people, yeah, most people don't have that ability.
Right, right. Yeah, I completely agree. And that was my experience too. Until I met my own mentors, that's exactly what happened with me. There was a lot that I didn't know how to control. And in the past, when I was much younger, it wasn't like here's the thing, for me, I wasn't even having a bunch of negative activity. It was just I was having so much activity that focusing on my day-to-day life was difficult.
Hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, so having good boundaries around all of that, I think is really important. And I think too that that makes these occurrences even more special because they are happening at truly random moments. And it gets to the point where it's just high quality events that are going on, meaningful, special events that happen when, at least for me and my husband, when we least expect it. And now we have this beautiful story, whatever it is, to share, you know?
Yeah.
So, and that's the higher end of it. It's just most people seem to fall on the really low vibrational end and they get these really negative hauntings and stuff. And it's my goal to help people really raise their vibrations and get to that higher level, you know?
Hmm.
But I
Absolutely.
agree with everything you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you had said before we actually started a recording that you hope that I had had some like a holiday themed,
Yes.
stories to tell. Well, I'll say first of all that the Christmas holiday, surprisingly enough, ghost stories are very popular
Right.
at Christmas, and I just always found that kind of funny.
It's the Pagan.
Well, you look at say like a Christmas Carol.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean that you can't come up with a more holiday themed story than that. Yet, boy, it's full of ghosts and hauntings and horrible things being done to
I watched.
Ebenezer Scrooge, and
Yeah.
that's not an uncommon theme, especially with like Victorian ghost
Mm-hmm.
stories centered around Christmas. And
That
I
was their thing.
yes, 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 very much so, very much so. Um, but some of the things that I have observed is that do you know that there are actually a number of people who have reported seeing Santa Claus
I just
during the holidays?
did you see the interview that I just put up with Soraya and Chris Ernst from Where Did the Road Go?
No, I haven't
Like
seen that one
2 days
yet.
ago.
No, I haven't seen that one yet.
The thumbnail is it's a picture of Chris and then Soraya and then myself, and in big bold letters it says, "We believe in Santa?" Question mark, exclamation point, or something like that. We just talked about this. I have been finding so many stories of
Yes,
people modern day seeing Santa Claus. I can't ignore it anymore.
yes.
Anyway, what were you gonna say?
What's up with that? That's what I want to know. And it's not just Santa Claus. There's stories about people who have seen like the Easter Bunny, when they were kids, and not like the cute little fuzzy Easter Bunny hopping around. No, I mean like big, tall, like Bigfoot
Yeah.
sized Easter bunnies that that look more like a March hare. I
Mhm.
don't know if you know what a March hare is, but
I believe I do. I believe I do. And I have I think I told you once I had my own similar experience with a large rabbit. You
yes,
remember that
yes,
email? Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
I do remember that. But yeah, that's there are people who have reported, seeing like this horrifying Easter bunny wearing a vest in their backyard, but looking like that it could easily bite their head off type of
Yeah.
situation. Santa Claus, most of the stories that I've run across have not been so terrifying. There were a couple where they said that like on Christmas night, they saw Santa Claus in their living room and he had like a malevolent glow about him, or like his face, looked evil somehow, which is not something that you would think that a kid would, report. Okay.
Yeah.
If a kid would
Yeah.
say that he saw Santa Claus, Christmas morning, then it would probably, you would think it would go more along the lines of like, the pop culture of Santa Claus, the jolly old man, as he puts the presents out, drinking the glass of milk that he left on him. But, several of these stories, I mean, no, Santa Claus looks like that, he's robbing the place, or, he's going to go and, assault the babysitter or something, you know.
There was one that I read recently. Gosh, it took place somewhere in America where they get snow. I don't remember all the details, so pardon me on that, please. But hi. So this lady swore, she's like, I'm an adult. Last Christmas, I saw Santa fly over top of my house with his sleigh and his reindeer. And I thought I was crazy until the next morning I went and outside in the front of my house were all the reindeer prints and the sled prints. So, like, what do we even make of that?
I know, right? And I mean, I've run across similar stories where somebody will see, you know, the traditional looking Santa Claus flying over their house. So I don't know. Does that do these kind of sightings fall within the same category of landed UFOs? With the what appear to be extraterrestrials, or whatever you would call extraterrestrials, getting out and wandering around, coming up to talk to you, or whatever, it makes you think that at least some aspect of this phenomena is not part of the material world. That's the best thing that I can say just off the top of my head. Because I do think that at least some part of the UFO phenomena may actually, involve, physical spaceships, from either other planets or from here, or what have you. But then there are other parts of it that seem to be more paranormal,
Mm-hmm.
interdimensional, what have you. We don't have the proper words to describe the phenomena, but it appears to be plastic. And what I mean by plastic is that it can take on forms that are familiar to us for
Yes.
whatever reason. Thus, the appearances of Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, or the scary clown from It, things like that, and that's what makes a lot of this stuff that I research and write about so interesting, is that it falls into that high strangeness category that really does, I mean, it blows everything else out of the water uh, in trying to come up with an explanation, because there are no explanations. The only thing you can say is, yeah, well, crap happens,
Yeah.
and I don't know why it does,
Mm-hmm.
and why it seems to fit into categories of expectations uh, at the time when people believed maybe that Krampus existed and traveled along with Saint Nicholas. There were sightings of Krampus coming into your house and beating the children with willow staves and things like
Yeah.
that. People don't really believe in Krampus anymore, so you don't have those sightings like there used to be. But when it did happen, why was it happening? Is there a part of our reality that is manipulatable
Mhm.
by our collective unconscious, so to speak, that at times can actually, well, like you were talking about tulpas earlier,
I was
are,
about to say that could be part
yeah,
of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
are these forms of tulpas that on at times when expectations are high,
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
appearance of Santa Claus, that some people actually do see him. Or when the expectations are high, say like during a UFO flap, that people see landed craft with the expected types of extraterrestrials. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, I
I don't know.
agree.
Yeah, I don't know. If I
I
had the answers, I doubt if I would be, on your show talking to you. I would be on na- national television raking in the big bucks.
Right. Yeah, I agree. You probably would, and you'd be holding press conferences with the president or something, you know?
Yeah, right.
It's maybe it's all of that, or maybe it's none of it. I don't
Mhm.
know. And I've come to really enjoy personally the mystery of this strange place called Earth, whatever the heck that is. And I hope that we'll get the answers when we get home, but it's kind of fun in the meantime to talk about it until then. At least I think so.
It really is. I mean, that's to me that's a large part of my interest in this is that we'll probably never know the
Yeah.
answers. Or at least in this world, we may never. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because I love a mystery, and I think that that's what makes our lives very interesting. Is these are these mysteries?
Yeah.
It helps keep us going and helps us look for answers. And while we may never find the original answers that we were looking for, we may be able to find other answers that we weren't looking for, that we just just accidentally stumble upon and be like, oh well, look, you know, we may not be able to explain this, but look what we did find, and that's fun. That's so much fun.
It is. 'Tis the season. It is December. Soon I have Tobias Wayland coming up of the Singular Fortean Society. Are you familiar?
Oh yes, I know Tobias. Yeah, yep. He's a
Excellent.
great guy, and his wife as well. They're great interviews.
Awesome. He sent me his new Christmas book to read, and I'm going to make it the featured promotion for December. And I'm about to crack into it tonight when we're done here. I can't wait to hear what he has to say because it's going to be kind of a creepy Christmas book, and I'm hoping we're going to have some Santa and maybe some Krampus information and encounters in there. But I do maybe this is still the child part of me. I so want to believe in Santa Claus. And I so want to believe in Krampus and elves and whatnot. Do you think that there's any universe out there where all of that is real and true?
Well, if you accept the idea of the multiple worlds theory, that is a part of the uncertainty principle, as it's called, then yes, there is a reality somewhere out there where all of that is real, where everything is real, everything that we can think of, that we can imagine, and even stuff that we can't imagine has a reality somewhere in this big, vast universe, multi-universe. And that's one of the things that Paulino talks about. Because he doesn't think that, say, an afterlife for people exists like we traditionally think that it does.
Okay.
That instead our spirits, essence, whatever you want to call them, continues on in this multiverse, that we never truly ever cease to exist because we continue on somewhere else, somewhere else's, plural.
Yeah, yeah,
And to me, that's kind of an appealing idea because I do think that whatever it is that makes us up, our consciousness or soul, whatever, exists simultaneously across the multiverse and in the past, present, and future all at the same time. All right. So, when people are said to be hypnotized and recall a past life, they're not recalling a past life. They're recalling a life that they are living right now that for us would be in our past. And it would be just as easy to tap into those lives that we are having right now in the future and across the multiverse. I think that at times when you dream at night, that
Mhm.
you are actually experiencing one of these other realities.
I agree.
And you know that you're experiencing it because when you wake up, you may actually have this feeling, this sense of loss for the people that you were interacting with in these dreams, because you are actually interacting with real people, real events, and now you're focused on this reality and no longer focused on that other one. So that sense of loss is real. So I
I
mean, it's an interesting theory, and maybe we'll know someday.
Yeah, maybe. And then this brings us into another wonderful topic, I think. We're writing a book that deals with these types of topics right now. Would you like to break the news?
Well, we'll mention it a little bit. I have mentioned it on other shows, but we're you, me, Sean Castile, a cast of others are writing a book about the mysteries of time. Not necessarily time travel, though that will be a part of it, but just the overall mystery of time. What is it? Does it exist? What is our role to play in time if we have a role? And so I mean, we'll be examining current understanding theories on the nature of time in a scientific viewpoint. But then again, we'll also be looking at all these great stories about people who have had weird experiences involving time, and not just time, but possibly alternative realities as well, because maybe there's no different. Time slips, people who have had missing time experiences, ghostly experiences that may actually involve time travel, whatever that means. So, it's we hope to get it finished by the early months of 2024, and then out to our adoring public. So
Yeah,
that's about all I can say at the moment about it.
perfectly good with me, my love. Well, as far as the book goes, I think it's going to be an incredible step in some ways as far as getting all of this out into the public eye. And I personally, I've had my own experiences with what seem to be time and reality glitches. We've talked about this before, but for you, have you ever had any of that type?
I had I think may have been a time slip experience once.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to tell if it was a ghostly experience or a time slip experience, but that's part of what this book is about. Because there have been a number of other people who have had experiences that they thought was a ghostly experience, but may have actually have turned out to have been like some kind of time slip experience. Myself, it was when I was a teenager with a friend, and we had a flat tire on it wasn't like a country road. It was actually like a state highway, and we pulled off to the side, and we were having trouble jacking the car out. My dad's station wagon. It was a big, heavy thing, and it was a gravel shoulder. So the jack was having problems getting a good hold, in the gravel. And we had parked in front of this older house. It was like a farmhouse, and there was a path, like a concrete path leading up to the house, and there were like teacup rose bushes on either side of this path. Well, this old guy came out and he brought us a big piece of flat wood that we were able to put underneath the jack that acted as like a solid foundation that we were able to jack the car up. So it was, greatly appreciated. And then later my mom actually like baked, I think it was a pie, and told me to take it to this guy to thank him, for his help. Well, when I got to the area, I could not find the house. And
Oh,
I knew where it was, but the house wasn't there. And in fact, the place where I thought the house was, it looked like that there had been a house there at one time, and there was even still some of these teacup bushes, which had long, since had not been taken care of and were just
right.
completely overgrown. But the house was completely gone. So,
Wow.
so whether or not that house actually existed at one point in time, and that we had this time slip, but we definitely interacted with this guy, and he definitely brought us out this piece of wood to help us jack up the car. So, I mean, was it a time slip? Was it a like a brief merging of an alternative reality? You
Yeah.
know, type of situation. I don't
No,
know. I don't know. It was, or did I just get myself completely screwed up, and I was not at the place that we actually were when we had the flat tire. So I don't know. But it was an unusual experience enough that I'm still talking about it today. You know,
yeah.
how many years? I mean, I hadn't been driving long, so I was maybe 17. So that was a bunch of years ago. I mean, we were still knocking rocks together to produce fire at that time.
Yeah.
So
Oh
yeah,
no. Come
yeah,
on now.
yeah. You know,
You're no older than
yeah,
25. Don't
ice hadn't even been invented yet. So that's how far back it was.
Oh my gosh. Now people in my comment section are gonna start writing jokes like, yo, guest is so old that the earth wasn't even here yet and
Yeah,
stuff.
no, I want to hear those. See if they beat the ice hasn't hadn't been invented yet.
That's pretty good. You got me on that. You got me on that one. I wasn't expecting it. But yeah, I agree. What is it exactly that happened? It's so hard to know. Can we ever even really know? I'm not sure, at least not while we're here. There's this channel that I like to watch. It's run by a lady named Eva. I've watched her for several years now. She documents the Mandela Effect every single week. Wednesday at midnight California time is her time to shine.
Hmm.
And she made this one video years ago talking exactly about the same type of thing that you are. And she made a video, she called it something like the amazing morphing house on the hill or something like that. And so she swears that this house keeps changing almost every week or something very similar. And then she's seen buildings pop up and disappear and all of that. So
Hmm.
I believe you. I believe you.
Well, and those are the type of stories that we're going to include, in this book because I love stories like
Yeah.
that. And I know that, people are like, oh, well, they don't mean it. Anecdotal tales, they don't mean anything. Uh, I don't care. They're
Yeah.
interesting, and it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the program. It's these kind of stories from individuals that I find fascinating. Because people are having these experiences, and a lot of and most of these people have no idea that other people are having these types of experiences that are just the same and have been just the same for centuries, you know. So, you know, that, to me, that's what is fascinating about all this are these individual anecdotal experiences. But I love reading them, and I know that our readers enjoy reading them as well.
For sure. One of the things that you told me when we first started talking was that if someone calls you and tells you that their refrigerator is talking,
Yeah.
you want to talk to the fridge.
Right, right.
That I so admire that about you because you're not putting things down just for being anecdotal, which sure, technically they are by definition anecdotal, but this is where everything comes from. We're building our knowledge of science and medicine and medication and nutrition from individual experiences. If we didn't have those individual experiences, we wouldn't know where to go with any of this. And so I think that so-called disclosure is going to come from the individuals whose stories stack up over time until there's definitive science or proof or whatever, or we get more so-called myths and legends and Santa encounters.
Yeah, pure. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I mean, you talk about disclosure. I mean, I don't think that any kind of disclosure is going to convince anybody unless there is that proverbial mass landing. You know, like you see in the science fiction movies where, you know, like the giant spaceships are over every major city in, you know, in the world. And even then, there are going to be a lot of people who are just going to be like, oh, well, it's some kind of, you know, government conspiracy, you know, using holograms and stuff to convince us that the UFOs are here and it's all part of the New World Order type of stuff. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
it just goes to show you that, you know, that even the most convincing of evidence, there are still going to be people who will never be convinced.
You might be quite right. I mean, evidence is subjective in some ways, I think. And,
Yep.
and for me too, if all of a sudden over the big cities there are giant UFOs, for me, I need to know how can I deduce that these aren't holographic projections. So I'm one of those people that you talked about, but I approach everything that way. So how do I know that the person isn't unfortunately hallucinating or mistaking something? How do I know that it is indeed paranormal? And oftentimes it is really hard to get to the bottom of things. And there have been many cases where I've not been able to get to the bottom of them. And then I look up at the sky. If I see a giant UFO, I have no way to get up there and inspect everything for myself. But then, even if I did, what if some person or entity is using some kind of masking technology or something that I'm not aware of yet? So I don't
Yep.
know. I take every moment as it is, and I just try to be as open minded, but still skeptical as I can at the same time. God, I sound like a lunatic.
Yeah, no, no, no. That's see, to me. I mean, that's my philosophy. Actually, you know, actually, I always tell people, you know, because I always get the people like, oh, well, you know, you know, you believe in UFOs, or no, no. They say, do you believe in UFOs? And I'm
Okay.
like, that's the wrong question. You know, that is really the wrong question, you know, because you first of all, you're trying to make me say that I believe in something. And I always say, I don't believe in anything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in anything.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff that I like to research, investigate, and write about, I have an open mind about it all. I don't
Mm-hmm.
believe in any of it because as soon as you develop a belief system, then your mind is closed off. All right.
Free.
And for a lot of people, nothing else will ever be, you know, be able to, you know, come in again. And I don't want to be like that. I want to keep my mind open.
Good.
I may have um, theories and speculations that I enjoy,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not staking my life on any of them because tomorrow new evidence may come in that'll blow it all out of the water, you
Yeah.
know, and I want to be ready for that. I want to be prepared for that, you know. So, if you were to tell me tomorrow that the government has come out and absolutely proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that UFOs are from a secret civilization from within the hollow earth,
Uh-huh.
I'll be like, great. Uh, uh, let's see more evidence about it. I'm not going to commit myself to it yet, but great.
Yes,
I appreciate the news. Let's see what happens. Uh,
yes.
so and then the next day they may come out and say, oh, nope, we were wrong. They don't come from within our hollow planet. They come from within the hollow Venus. Instead. And again, I'd be like, great.
I agree.
Yeah. Show me the evidence.
Yeah, exactly. So for myself, I have a cluster of core beliefs, but they are extremely compartmentalized to very certain types of experiences and non-human people that I seem to have met. And again, I always put on the disclaimer, I might be making it all up because I might have some kind of undiagnosed mental illness. I don't know. I don't know. These are just my beliefs, just my experiences. There does seem to be some proof to back up what I have experienced in the past and maybe even last night a little bit. So it seems like there's something to what I'm saying, what I'm believing, but that doesn't mean that it's a one and done for everything. I never make that claim. I think that there might be lots of different types of UFOs, UAPs, whatever you want to call them. And we were talking about Santa. Maybe Santa's a UFO or a UAP. I don't know.
Right, exactly. Now, I will admit that I do have, certain pretty much established beliefs. Like I believe the earth is round, all right?
Okay.
You know, I believe that the sun and the moon are actual celestial objects in the sky and are not projections on the dome of the of the sky from some conspiracy by NASA.
That's
That sort of thing. You know,
fair.
I believe we live in a very huge universe, probably a multiverse. But for like I said, the things that we have been discussing
Mhm.
on tonight's show, it's best to keep your mind open to all kinds of different possibilities and explanations.
Yeah.
Because again, once you establish a belief system, then why bother anymore? You know,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
just because any other evidence that comes to you, you're not going to want to hear it.
Mhm.
It's like the people who have made their mind up that the UFO phenomena is strictly nuts and bolts spacecraft from other planets.
Yeah.
And and while that may be just as good an explanation as any, it probably isn't the only one.
I agree. I agree. In my experiences, it's been light focused. So balls of light are often the standard UFO form,
Mhm.
and even my husband has seen a few with me. So are those nuts and bolts? I don't think so, from what I understand. And of course, I could be wrong. But I don't know. I agree with you though about keeping the mind open as much as possible. And I don't talk to a lot of people about this unless we're having some type of intimate conversation or I'm invited somehow because people they get pretty defensive about this kind of stuff. But
Mhm.
for myself, I mean I told you about what happened with Evie crawling out of the cement, the years dried concrete. That messed up everything that I had thought might be true about being here. I used to think that there was more evidence for the earth being flat, for example. This was just my experience.
Sure.
I didn't know. I didn't claim to know. It just made some sense to me more than some of the NASA footage. But when I saw my cat crawl out of the dried cement, I just came to the realization anything is possible. I have no idea. And I'm not going to touch the subject of reality in any type of objective way anymore. Okay, yes, the earth is round. Okay, yes, it's flat. Okay, yes, it's a simulation. I don't know. My cat just crawled out of cement like jello. That was the end all be all for me.
Yep, yep. Well, cats have that unique ability to do things like that. So,
They do. They really do. Oh my goodness. And you know how it is. Cats are liquid. You've got a few cats of your own.
oh
So,
yes, yep, that's right. They are. We had a
yeah.
cat that she was a big cat. I mean, she was furry, she was chonky, yet she hated thunder. And when it would thunder, she could crawl under the couch, which I think, yeah, I mean, it was just like, maybe 2 inches from the floor. Yet she could flatten herself out and crawl under the
Yes,
couch.
yep.
I still don't know how she managed to do that.
She went from 22 pounds to 5 pounds, just
Yeah,
like
well,
that.
from three-dimensional to two-dimensional is what you had to do.
Oh man. Evie does the same stuff. She'll army crawl, and I'm amazed at how flat she gets.
Yeah.
I wish I could do that sometimes. Oh my. So we were talking about the Victorians and their ghost stories. I wanted to say I watched when I was very young the Disney Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Mhm.
That scarred me. It still haunts my dreams. And I want to know, were the Victorian people really as haunted as what they put out in these stories, do you think? Or did they just make, for some reason, the Christmas season even spookier just for sport? Or what do you think?
Oh, well, I mean, I think that there had already been a long tradition of ghost stories and Christmas, even before the Victorian era. I mean, there was the idea that, as it's talked about in A Christmas Carol, that the veil becomes thinner during Christmas. Um, but I mean, that pre-Victorian, Christmas wasn't as celebrated as it was starting around that time. In fact, there were a lot of communities where it actually had become illegal to celebrate Christmas.
Oh my.
Because previous to that, it
Mhm.
had turned into a very, what would you call it, like a Bacchus type of event where people, like how we celebrate New Year's now,
Yeah,
that's how people would celebrate Christmas, getting drunk and doing debauched things. And so, like a lot of places actually made it illegal to celebrate Christmas. But, you have a lot of these, especially I think dramatic traditions
mhm.
that kind of started seeping into the Victorian era that involved ghosts and other types of supernatural entities that would come about not only on Christmas but the days leading up and after Christmas. I can't remember the name. There's a specific name for the days of Christmas, which goes beyond uh, you know, December 25th. But I can't think of what the name is. But all of those days were considered significant for one reason or another, and part of that whole overarching um, mythology that surrounded Christmas, that a lot of it stemmed from the pagan traditions that were incorporated by the early Christians in,
Yeah.
or in order to bring those pagans into their fold, so to speak.
Tell 'em.
Yeah, right, right. And a lot of those traditions involved, uh, the earth spirits, the nature spirits, that were part of the, like the especially the winter solstice and
Oh yeah.
the was, how do you pronounce it, Saturnalia.
Saturnalia.
Thank you.
Yes.
Traditions that were brought in. So I think that you saw like a peak of all of this in starting in the Victorian times, and have continued on, to a certain extent, even to today. I know a lot of people don't really think about how traditional it is to tell ghost stories on
Yeah.
Christmas, but still they manage to.
Yeah.
It's not exclusive to Halloween.
Not one bit. Even now, I'm doing well, I'm working on the show for the week before Christmas, and I'm doing a show about enchanted Christmas trees, essentially,
Mhm.
and the pagan roots of the Christmas tree and the link to fairies and wood sprites and all of that, and how that might still play a role in today's life, as well as ghosts apparently being in and around Christmas trees. And I wonder sometimes if these traditions have only spurred forth the Victorian assertion that Christmas is a magical time. Like, what
Mhm.
if bringing in the tree, hanging up all of that holly and that ivy, and then the darkness on top of it, what if that kind of played a role in it? What if they're not actually seeing ghosts? What if it's something totally different? And yet the spookiness is still there, the tradition is still there. It's all had to come from somewhere. At least I think so, right?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you go back into the pagan times,
Mhm.
and I mean, nature and the spirits associated with nature, the elves and the fairies, the green men, that was all such a significant part of people's lives.
Yeah.
And it was celebrated, during this time, during the winter months, when the sun has disappeared basically, and
Uh-huh.
so all you have left are your your nature friends. So you invite them into your house, offer them some porridge and a warm place in front of your fire, and that's the traditions that we're still seeing today. Like you said, bringing in the tree and hanging up the mistletoe and other things. I mean, that invitation
Yes.
to share into the warmth and whatever it is that you have to get us all through the cold winter
Yeah.
months.
Yeah. And too, a lot of people don't know this, but apparently Santa Claus used to be considered an elf or a gnome in
Mhm.
some places around the world. And with that sharing, the food offerings for the fairies is where we got apparently the leaving of milk and cookies for Santa Claus. It used to be leaving cream and fresh bread with butter, but somehow over time it came to be leaving milk and cookies, which I mean, I think that's just as awesome, and hopefully Santa does too. But yeah, it all does stem from trying to get through this period together and bringing all of that inside. And just how magical of a season is this, really, you know?
Yep. Yep. Well, I always say, Santa says, the heck with the milk and cookies, leave me a beer.
He told you that, huh?
That's right.
Well, that's the new food and drink offering. Beer and tacos, maybe.
That's right.
There's a
That's more the dramatic Santa Claus, you know.
oh, gotcha. The Modelo. I think it's called that's the Modelo Santa Claus.
Okay.
I bumped into Santa online on Facebook, and if I'm fortunate, he'll be joining me actually for a show before Christmas if he can
Oh,
find time in his schedule. And I'm really looking forward to talking to him about how he gets everything done on that one eve. There's got to be something Fortean going on there. It's
oh
just got to
well,
be.
Santa's a time traveler.
Yeah.
He is able to travel the world in between seconds.
Yes. Yes, he is.
That's how he does it.
And he sees you when you're sleeping.
That's right.
Well, I just checked my phone. We I think are making wonderful time, and unfortunately, now we're out of time, my friend. Do you have anything to say as far as parting words of wisdom or any new announcements? Where can we find you?
Well, you can find all of my books on Amazon.com. Just type in my name, Tim R. Swartz, and they'll all come tumbling out for your reading pleasure, both print and ebooks. You can also find some of them at your favorite local bookstores. And I always encourage everyone to please patronize your favorite local bookstores. If you don't find my books at a brick and mortar store, ask for it because they'll be able to get you a, a copy. Our most recent book is Mimics the Others Among Us.
Yes.
And I encourage everyone and make a great Christmas present. So get out and buy like 5 or 6 copies and give to your loved ones. And you can find that on Amazon. Had some great authors in that book: Sean Castile, Scott Corrales, Nigel Watson, just some wonderful writers. And of course, we've got the new book that we're currently working on. Tillie, you are going to have several chapters in this book once it is finished, and we've got a lot of our favorite authors also involved in this one. So I'm really looking forward to getting that one finished and out there for everyone to read. And really, that's about it. I don't really have any catchy catchphrases or anything like that to end the conversation with. I've got a website called conspiracyjournal.com. It's kind of a leftover from when I was working with the late great Timothy Green Beckley. Unfortunately, right now the word conspiracy has taken on really negative bad vibes with certain groups who have kidnapped it to use it for political purposes. But the Conspiracy Journal website really is more of the fun stuff, the things we've been talking about on today's show,
Yeah.
UFOs, ghosts, stuff like that. But I always say that Conspiracy Journal, where we like to say we have all the weird news and information that they don't want you to know.
Excellent. And then you're also weekly on the Paracast. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. That's it's the Paracast with host Gene Steinberg, and you can actually hear that on radio stations all across the country late Saturday nights, almost into early Sunday mornings for a lot of people. But you can hear all of the past episodes. I've only been co-host on it for the past couple of years, but I
Uh-huh.
mean it's been on for like 17 years,
Wow.
and Gene has all of the past episodes archived on the website, which is www.theparacast.com. Easy as that. So, I mean, if you're interested, go and check out. They've had lots of excellent guests over the years, and I'm always really happy to be part of of the show. Gene always calls it, it's the gold standard of paranormal broadcasting.
Yes, he does. He says that often. He's very proud, and I think that maybe he should be. It's a wonderful show, and I love to listen to it too. I listen to it while I'm doing my chores.
Oh, thank you. I'm
Yeah,
glad you listened to it. I've yet to listen to it since I've been on. I don't like to
oh,
listen. I don't like to listen to myself. Don't like to. I never watch myself whenever I'm on, other shows. So
right.
I have to take people's word for it that I've done a good or terrible job.
So I shouldn't send you a copy of this show. Got it.
No, no, I won't. And nothing against you, Tilly. I won't watch it because then I'll go and I'll start second guessing myself, and I'll be
Yeah,
like, why did I say that? Why did I talk to
yeah,
like that?
yeah.
And so I'm not going to fall into that quagmire.
Oh, that's okay. It's okay. Well, my friends, I think that this has been a wonderful walk. Thank you so much for joining us. I have been Tillie Treadwell, and this is my dear friend Tim Swartz. We wish you a merry morning or a magical midnight,